Good afternoon, and welcome to the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute here at the University of California, San Diego. My name is Ira Nelson. I'm a member of the Curriculum Committee and the coordinator for today's presentation by Eric McElveny, titled Overcoming Life's Biggest Challenge. Eric is an endurance athlete living in San Diego. He earned a mechanical engineering degree from the U.S. Naval Academy while preparing for his service as a Marine Corps infantry officer. Eric deployed 3 times as a Marine and, after 7 years, on his final tour in 2011 in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, was wounded after stepping on an IED. Eric suffered the amputation of his right leg below the knee, a life-changing opportunity that began his next journey. Faced with a physical challenge and an uncertain future, Eric made a promise to himself to run an Ironman triathlon. On his journey from the hospital bed in Southern California to the finish line in Kona, Hawaii, he realized that the challenge and adversity he was up against and the techniques he used to reach the finish line could be used against the challenges we all face. When not training, racing, and delivering inspiration, Eric was, I guess I just discovered he's no longer at San Diego State as a director of the Troops to Engineering program, assisting transitioning veterans into the workforce, so which he had been doing. I'm sure he'll tell us perhaps during the Q&A what he's presently doing. Following Eric's presentation today, I suspect I will have second thoughts about complaining and kvetching to anyone. Give a warm Osher welcome to Eric McElveny.
Thank you for the introduction. Guys, it's an honor to be here. This is exciting for me, really cool opportunity. And I'm going to, like we do here at Osher, I'm going to talk for about an hour, and then I really look forward to opening it up for questions. I think that's where the learning is going to occur. And the way I do this, my talk is it's a story, and the lessons that I've learned, they're going to come out. And I'm going to start here with a video. It's a commercial.
Dedication. Loyalty.
Guys are getting better at this, yeah. Next week, buddy.
Friendship. The choices we make reveal the true nature of our character.
Hey, isn't that commercial special? That's very heartwarming. I'm sorry it's a beer commercial. I don't know if y'all like beer or not. I didn't put that up because I'm a raging alcoholic, but I just wanted to share that commercial because I think it just says a lot. One, you got a guy he's in a wheelchair, doesn't have the use of his legs, and he's out there doing it. He's doing it. He's playing a very, very physical sport. He's active. He's enjoying it. And then at the end of the commercial, you see that the group around him doing it, those are his friends supporting him. And that's key. That's loyalty. That's friendship. And that's just everything. I love it. I wasn't sure how quick this was going to come out. I'm wearing pants today. I didn't know that you're going to read through the bio, but I'm an amputee. I lost my right leg below the knee, and I like to get that out in front, especially when I'm wearing pants and people can't tell, because I don't want to get halfway through the story and then surprise someone. So that's me. That's actually about 3 months after I was injured. That's with my daughter. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get through it. I'm going to start with my background. I'm not going to stay there too long. But guys, I've found and I've realized that everything that I needed after my injury was stuff that I learned growing up and going through my life. So I need to jump into my background just to give you an idea of who I am and what drives me. And I'm going to take you all the way back to when I was little. That's the little dude with the red sweater in the front row and the cool looking bowl cut. That's me. That's hey, girls love that sweater. I still wear it. I'm just kidding. 2 older sisters that used to beat up on me when I was little, but I could take them now. Really, though, we were each other's biggest supporters. We were fans of each other. We loved each other, and that's a special sibling thing that I want to pass on to my daughters. But they both live on the East Coast. We still talk almost 2 or 3 times a week, which is special. And then my parents, they've been married 30-something years, and they are just the example of parents. Very, very great parents, and an example in a marriage, a very unselfish, loving marriage. And we didn't have very much money growing up. I actually grew up in a trailer park, but I didn't know that we were poor, because what my parents valued was love and support, and that's what I took away from that. And looking back, man, am I blessed and lucky to have had that, and I hope to bring that to my family. And that's about a year ago. So my littlest girl is she's a little bit older now, and it's funny. We had our older daughter, and my wife kind of gave me the choice, like, hey, do you want to get a dog or have another child? I went with the dog. We got a dog, and I got a female lab, and then like most children, our littlest one came unexpected, and it happens to be another girl. So now I am way outnumbered. I am totally outnumbered at my house. There's more crying than I know what to do with. It's fun, though. Guys, growing up, I loved sports. I absolutely loved sports. I played all kind of sports. Narrowed it down to football and baseball eventually, but I was outdoors doing stuff with my friends, playing on the teams. But because I love sports, I had to make school a priority, because my mother would not let me play sports if I didn't bring home good grades and get my homework done. Tested it once in the 5th grade. She didn't let me go play in my Little League game, and I thought she was doing a disservice to the team, because I was the number 3 batter and the starting shortstop, but it was me that was doing that disservice to the team, and I learned my lesson. So school became important. So I had sports in school, and it was school that ended up having a really big impact on my life, something that I learned, and it was in the 8th grade. We had to do a homework assignment. It was a career research report. We had to decide what it was we wanted to be when we grew up, research it, and write about it. And it was supposed to be a longer thing. Like we were supposed to go to the library, get some books, try to get some interviews, do a few things here and there. But it was over a few months, so we really dug deep into it. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up in the 8th grade. I went home and asked my parents. My mom, she said something. I was like, okay. It was my dad. He said, you should check out the military. Just out of curiosity, do we have any military veterans here? A couple. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service. Thank you. At that time, mid-90s, I wanted to check out the military. At that time, the Marine Corps, they had the coolest commercials. They had a commercial of a dude climbing a mountain, slaying a dragon, and putting on the coolest looking uniform I'd ever seen. So that's really, I know it's weird, but that's the reason that I decided to do the report on the Marine Corps. I wanted to be the few, the proud, the Marines. So I did that report on the Marine Corps, and what I learned had that everlasting impact on me. Just the rich history of the Marine Corps. Battle of Belleau Wood, where the Germans nicknamed Marines Devil Dogs. That is just cool. We still call each other Devil Dogs. Iwo Jima, Guadalcanal, Battle of Dido, the stories of valor, the stories of heroes. This is Medal of Honor winner, Gunnery Sergeant Johnny Basilone. He actually enlisted in the Army and did 2 years in the Army, and quote, he said, Army wasn't tough enough, so then he joined the Marines. Hey, it's a healthy competition between Army and Marines. They're both great. But he went to the Marines. Guadalcanal, fought off thousands of Japanese with him and his machine gun section. Was awarded the Medal of Honor. But man, I just look up to him. That is amazing. Went on to Iwo Jima. He was killed in action, but earned the Navy Cross. Just an amazing Marine. Sacrifice for our nation. It was that kind of stuff that really drew me in. I realized that there's always going to be someone sacrificing the way they live their life to provide security and freedom to our nation. And in the 8th grade, I knew I needed to be a part of that. So I had made a decision that I was going to be a Marine when I grew up. Went through high school, continued playing sports, and continued getting good grades because I had to. And it was my grandfather. I get advice from a lot of good people. My grandfather, he was in the Army in Korea. He didn't talk about it. I he passed away my freshman year of college, so I really didn't get to learn too much about his experiences. After he passed away, we found out through paperwork that he earned 2 Bronze Stars, but I understand. I understand why he didn't talk about it. But he was the one that recommended checking out the Naval Academy. And for 3 reasons: I can go and get an education, I can continue playing sports, which is a big thing, and I can still become a Marine. And I could become a Marine officer and be in charge of other Marines. So that sounded good enough to me. So I went through application process, put in. It was tough getting in. I had to do a year of prep school, and then I had to use baseball to get recruited. But I ended up getting myself to the Naval Academy. And it was just an amazing experience. While I was there, I wouldn't say that. I would say this is hard and this is challenging, but I needed that. The challenge, the structure, the discipline. It was a good experience. I actually played rugby at the Naval Academy, 3 years rugby. Anyone here ever play rugby? It's a pretty cool sport. Yeah, in the back. It's definitely a tough sport, a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I studied mechanical engineering, but the most important thing that happened to me at the Naval Academy, easy by far, I met my wife. My wife was also a midshipman, and she was also studying mechanical engineering. I used to go to her for help in mechanical engineering, and it wasn't even because I needed the help. I just thought she was really cute. Strategy paid off. We fell in love. We got married. I graduated from the Naval Academy in 2006. I was commissioned as 2nd lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. It was great. That's what I wanted to do. I went through some initial training, and then there's a lot of different specialties in the Marine Corps, and I wanted to be in the infantry. Because when I watched that commercial back in those mid-'90s, that's what I pictured myself doing, being an infantry guy. And I got selected to be infantry. Trained up, and then I was sent out this way. To Camp Pendleton, where I hooked up with an infantry battalion, and it was 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, about 600 Marines in this unit, and our nickname was the Magnificent Bastards, which for me was good because prior to being Magnificent Bastard, I was only a bastard, so it was already a promotion. But we're very proud of being part of 2-4, the Magnificent Bastards. Did 2 deployments pretty quick. Both deployments were non-combat deployments. One was to Southeast Asia, worked with a lot of foreign militaries. It was very, very interesting. Went to some different countries, Indonesia, Thailand, Japan, Philippines. Did some pretty cool stuff. Did a little bit of humanitarian assistance type stuff. Came back, trained up again, hopped on ships this time, went off. This time it was to the Middle East. We were actually a force in readiness. We were waiting to get called up to go to Afghanistan. It was during the troop surge in Afghanistan, so I probably read about 10 books on Afghanistan, and we were training, getting ready, but it never came. We again went to a couple different countries. I went to Jordan, did some cool stuff there, worked with some more foreign military, spent a lot of time in Kuwait, then ended up steaming back to San Diego here. And then that was my time with 2-4. It was time for me to rotate jobs, and then spend 3 years kind of behind a desk, like as an office job, before I went back to that deploying fleet. My wife, she also did two deployments, so I deployed, she deployed, I deployed, she deployed. I found out that she's way cooler than me when I had a few buddies from high school who wanted to come visit San Diego, came out and stayed with us, and I wanted to show them around. I was like, hey, what do you guys want to do? We could go to the beach. Oh, I could take you up to Camp Pendleton. I'll show you some Marine stuff. And they said, what's your wife doing today? It was a Saturday. And I said, oh, well, she's down on duty. She's on watch. She's at her ship. See, the captain of the ship on weekends, he doesn't just stay at the ship the whole time. So one of the officers is in charge. So she's in charge for the day. And they said, well, can we go check it out? I was like, I don't know, I guess. I called her up, and she gave us this great tour of the ship. And those guys, it was like 5 years ago. That's what they talk about still. So I realized, like, I walked around with a rifle and a pistol and some gear. She used to drive battleships with guns bigger than my house. And so she's way cooler than me. Came back. I switched jobs, and then the Magnificent Bastards, 2-4, they got to call, and they got slated. Their next deployment was going to be to Afghanistan. And my previous boss reached out to me and asked if I wanted to be a part of that. He asked if I wanted to come back to the team. And I said yes, but let me run it by my boss first. So I had to call my wife. My wife was actually deployed at this time. I had to send her an email and ask her to call me when she could. And I asked her if I could go to Afghanistan. It was like, Mom, can I go over to Jimmy's house? And Rachel, can I go to Afghanistan and fight a war? And she's always been so supportive of me, and she knew that it's what I wanted to do. As an infantry Marine, like those deployments, the first 2 deployments, they were good experiences. And, I didn't sign up to go to war. I didn't sign up to go hurt people, but because there was a war going on, and my Marine brothers and sisters were over there fighting in that war, as an infantry guy, we wanted to be there. We wanted to be in the conflict. That's where we wanted to be. So she knew that, and she was very supportive and said yes. So I got this awesome opportunity to go to Afghanistan, and the job was a little bit different. I led a small team of 4 guys, and we were embedded into an Afghan Army infantry company of 120 guys, 120 infantry soldiers. And these guys, they were in the Army for a while. They were good at what they do. I mean, they just knew battle and they knew war, because Afghanistan has been a war-torn country for so many decades now. But our job, we were advisors and mentors to them. In the villages where we were going, you had the Afghan soldiers, and then you had a company of Marines. And our job was to be with Afghan soldiers, to be a liaison to the Marines, and the Marines were getting ready to leave, so the Afghans were taking over. And it was a very interesting and unique opportunity to get to live their culture and really understand what they're going through, and to train them and to fight alongside them. It was pretty cool. And this is my team. We're the guys without the hats. On the far left, Corporal Lester. The next guy in is Nick Jones. Our corpsman, Doc Strum, is in the middle. Second on the right is me. And then the far right, that's our interpreter. His name was Kazim. And we needed him constantly because we spoke a different language than the Afghans. We tried to learn as much of their language as we could, but definitely needed that interpreter. In Afghanistan, this is just one of the villages. We were in Helmand Province, southern Afghanistan. We were in the Nowzad district. And Nowzad is actually, if you look up past that mountain, it's a little bit bigger than this village, but this is Dahana. This is just another one of the villages that we would patrol and we would protect. And if you look, I put the picture up because it's a little bit different than here. It's mud huts. They didn't have electricity. Every once in a while, one of the compounds or houses would have a generator, so they can get a little bit of light, but not every house had that, or not every compound had that. They didn't have running water either, so they'd have to go down to the crevasses into the ground and get water and bring it back. It was just a different place. But at the same time, it was really cool. It was very simple. They farmed. That's what they did. The kids... This is what I'll remember as the kids. Because we were there, the kids had the opportunity to go to school. The unit before 2-4, it was 2-3, they built a school, and because we were there to provide security, these kids got to go to school. So these villages, when I was there, they had military, they had Afghan police and Afghan army all around them, and they were safe from the Taliban. It was Afghan government ran. And because the kids had this opportunity to go to school. The little boys, they would have grown up and been recruited to the Taliban or just been farmers. And the little girls, never, ever, under Taliban governance, they never would have had an opportunity to even think about going to school. So it was very special being out and about and watching the kids skipping to school in the morning with their little trapper keepers and pencils and stuff. And that was stuff that was sent from the United States because they would send it to us. We'd take and give it to them. It was just a very, very special thing. This is just one of the soldiers, Sergeant Nasir, and he's one of the reasons that I have hope in Afghanistan. Some of the soldiers were so dedicated to their country, and this is one of them. He was a great fighter, a good leader. Every time we went on patrol, I was trying to convince him to come out with us because he was just that type of person, and he was good. This Kodak moment is actually right before a firefight. Yeah, we got in a fight with the Taliban. It was from pretty far off, but we won that day. They started shooting at us from about 1,000 meters away, and as Marines and Afghan soldiers, we got out of that trench and we advanced on them until they ran away, and then we found a bunch of IEDs. Now, IED, it's an improvised explosive device. What they did in this area was they filled a jug with homemade explosive, usually made out of some type of fertilizer or nitrate or some kind of mix. Any chemical engineers here? Nah, you guys would understand though. And then they would attach it. In this area, it was pressure plates. So they would have a piece of wood with 2 pieces of metal. And when you put pressure on it and the metal connects, it completes a circuit, ignites a blasting cap, and that explosive blows up. And they hide them in the ground. So this particular day, we found 5 IEDs that were not hidden in the ground yet. So that was a big win, and that gives me the opportunity to explain to you guys what an IED is. This is just I wanted to show you a more close up of what their houses look like, a little bit different than what our houses look like. And this is basically an alley, and this is a lot like the alley that I was hurt in. Anyone here ever have a pretty bad day? I've yeah, well, I don't know. I've had some pretty bad days, but there's a particular day that I remember, and I now celebrate. It was December 9th, 2011. It started just like any normal day in Afghanistan. We woke up very early, around 4:30. We wanted to get ready for our patrol and leave our patrol base where we were. So when the sun came up, we were out and about in the village already. And that was the plan, and that's what happened. We were on a patrol. In this particular patrol, we were in a new area, and we were walking around. It was myself and my corpsman, the doc, the medical guy, he was only 21 years old at that time. It was us two, and we had 8 Afghan soldiers. And then also in the patrol, there was a squad of Marines, 13 Marines. And we went on this patrol, and our mission really was to meet the local people and really make those local people comfortable with the Afghan soldiers, because those are the ones that are going to be providing that security and safety for them. On the patrol, probably about a 5-hour patrol. It's funny, every time I tell the story, the patrol gets a little bit longer. So we're finishing up the 6-hour patrol. And we're heading back to our patrol base where we can drop our gear. Our gear was heavy. It was just uncomfortable. But we would drop it, do a debrief, and then plan the next day's patrol. I mean, every day in Afghanistan was out and about and patrolling and doing something. So we're looking forward to getting done. And on the way back to our patrol base, something bad happened. I stepped on an IED, an improvised explosive device, and I triggered one of those explosions underneath my right foot. I remember the experience being very, very violent. It picked my body up and threw me to the ground. I was laying on my back. I didn't know exactly what was going on at first. I had a concussion. I was conscious, but I was very dazed. My ears were ringing, a very, very high-pitched and loud ringing, and I think because of that, it almost felt like I was underwater, and life seemed like it was in slow motion because I couldn't hear anything. I didn't feel any pain, but as I was looking into the sky, which the sky was at this time, it was already around 10:30 a.m. It was a beautiful day, very blue sky, and as I was looking into the sky, it was dust filled and now just dirty and cloudy. I slowly began to realize what was going on. At first, the first thought that went through my mind is I thought maybe we got hit with mortars, which is like bombs from the air. But quickly I realized that I'm in Afghanistan. I just stepped on an IED. I knew it. I knew I stepped on an IED, and at that point I felt a wetness on my left leg, pretty high up. It was up above my knee, and I didn't feel it with my hands because I had gloves on. I felt it with my leg, but I didn't feel any pain. So when this was going on, I thought there was a chance that I was injured very badly and I was bleeding to death, and I thought there was a chance I was dying. And I remember the two things that went through my head. The first one, I thought about heaven. I thought that I was going to go to heaven. As a Marine, I thought that I was always in control, and when that blast happened, I realized that I was not in control at all. So I thought that was my next thing. And my next thought, I thought about my wife and my daughter. And it's like, man, even though I wasn't scared to go to heaven, I thought about my wife and daughter, and I realized that I have stuff that I still want to do here on earth. I want to grow old with my wife, and I want to be a father to my daughter. Shortly after that, it began to hurt. The pain in my right leg was just extremely fierce, and I remember trying to sit up, and then my corpsman, Doc Strum, and this probably, all that thinking probably took about 15 seconds or so, but he was on me, and he looked at me, and the first thing that he said was, "Sir, where's your tourniquet?" And I remember thinking to myself, man, I just wasted 15 seconds. I should have put a tourniquet on earlier. And I went to reach for my tourniquet because we had tourniquets, one here, one here. I had one in a pouch, and we usually carry one here, but I had a radio here. So I knew that I was going to go for this one. And before I could even grab it, he threw his knee into my femoral artery to stop any bleeding, and he put one of his tourniquets on me, and he started to render aid. The pain was really, really intense. I hope I never have to go through that kind of pain again. It was very painful. I remember pleading with my corpsman to somehow make the pain stop. And at one point, when he was done putting tourniquets on, he sat up and he's like, okay. And he pulled out some morphine from his pouch and he put it in my leg. And I was like, oh, okay. And it actually started working after a while. I asked him 3 times. He gave me morphine twice, and the third time he's like, no, sir, it's enough morphine to put down a small horse. I can't give you any more. It's like, okay, thank you. But he just did an amazing job. And when he was patching me up, he was talking to me like we were out to lunch. He was doing his thing, and yeah, I think we were talking about food. He said, hey, remember that yogurt that we ate yesterday? And how's your wife doing? What's her name? And do you remember my wife's name? And we were talking back and forth. It was his training was really coming through, and he was extremely proficient at what he did. And I think back to me at 21 years old. I wasn't as responsible as him, and that's just something special that our young men and women are doing. I was conscious throughout, and it was magic watching the guys go to work, because they had to do a casualty evacuation drill. I was a casualty, and they had to get me out of there. So one team quickly pushed out to provide security around the perimeter. One team went to find a good place for a helicopter to land, and they had to clear it. They had to clear it with a mine detector so a helicopter didn't come and land on an IED. And the last team was taking care of me. The doc was taking care of me. They were getting a stretcher ready. And there was one Marine, Sergeant Tina Harrow, who he was coordinating everything. And at one point, I remember being very cognizant, hearing things go on, and I heard Sergeant Tina Harrow say, man, my radio, I can't get this stupid thing working. Hey, get the radio from Captain Mack. And that's me. That was Captain Mack. So I quickly unclipped my radio and took it off and just put it aside, and they came and grabbed it, and they just went through their thing, and they were extremely efficient. 17 minutes after I was injured, the helicopter came and landed. As it was coming in, the Taliban showed up, but they were far off. They were trying to shoot at us. If a Taliban could shoot down an American helicopter, that is huge propaganda. Like, that is just huge. So it's when they hear an IED, they go to it. The Marines that were out on the perimeter, they fought them off, and the pilot made the decision to come in, even though there were rounds coming at us. And they came in, they threw me on there, and I took off. My flight to the surgical facility, the medical facility, was 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And that's why you see in the current wars, that's why you see so many guys coming back with traumatic injuries, because, one, the training we get, we have so many tourniquets. It says, hey, if something goes wrong, tourniquet it. And we get really good training. And they have surgical facilities on the front lines. So guys that would have been dying in past wars are now getting home. So that is something special. I was into surgery within 40 minutes of my injury. I woke up and I was in a different hospital. I don't know how I got there. They might have put me on a camel and just said go. I imagine it was like another helicopter ride. I don't know. But before I get there, just a quick picture. This is myself and Michael Schramm. This is a guy that saved my life. He 21 years old. This is after the deployment, so pretty special. Good stuff. When I woke up, I looked down. I was missing my right leg below the knee. I had bandages all over my left leg, some bandages on my arm. I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't even sit up. I had IVs going into me. I was a bit of a mess, but I was alive. But what had been normal the 28 previous years of my life had now changed. Now I no longer had a leg, and for me it was a bit of a loss of identity that really, really bothered me at first. 1 second before I stepped into that bomb, I was a Marine. I was a strong, healthy, confident, aggressive Marine. I was a leader. And then 1 second after I stepped on that bomb, I was on my back in need of help, in need of assistance. I wasn't confident. I wasn't even confident that I was going to live. I was not in charge of that situation either. I just felt like a different person. When I woke up in that hospital bed, I felt different. I looked different. I didn't know what was going to go on next, and I think I was scared of the unknown. I had fear of the unknown. I didn't know. I was a person who loved being outdoors and playing sports and doing the stuff in the Marine Corps. I didn't know if anything like that would ever happen again, because I didn't know what the next step was, and if I was ever going to take a step again. Like I just didn't know. But that was my challenge, and I think that's where everyone comes into the story. I had a physical challenge, and I guess it was emotional too. But physical challenge everyone here faces and experiences challenge, whether it's physical like mine or marital or financial or relationships or drugs or addiction or whatever it is. Everyone has a challenge, and what defines our character isn't the challenge that we're facing, but it's how we step up to the plate and how we handle those challenges. So this is an opportunity for me. And lucky for me, I had some very important people in my life that were very close and very supportive, like that group of friends around the wheelchair athlete. Like that's the kind of support that I had. And the first one, sometimes you think you're going to learn life's lessons from your mentors and coaches and maybe bosses. And I learned a very, very important lesson from my daughter. She was 5 years old at the time. She was in kindergarten. And when I was injured in December 2011, it took me 6 days to get from Afghanistan back here to San Diego. I did my recovery down at a Naval Medical Center, Balboa, which was great. The care was great. And that trip, that's a really fast trip. The Air Force flew us around. I went through Germany, went through Walter Reed, came out to California, spent a night. It was just, I was really impressed with that whole thing. But in those 6 days, my wife had a tough job. One, she not only is she doing the single parent thing at home while I was deployed on vacation in Afghanistan, but she's working in the Navy. And all of a sudden, she gets a call from Headquarters Marine Corps. Headquarters Marine Corps tells her that her husband got injured, lost his leg, and is in critical condition, and he'll be coming home in a couple days. Now she has to tell my daughter that. My daughter used to look at me like I was Superman, so she didn't know how she was going to take it. But she told my daughter, she sat her down and said, "Lupe, Daddy got hurt at work. Daddy lost his leg in Afghanistan, and he's going to be coming home. We need to be there to support him." My daughter asked my wife a question. "Well, when is he going to be home?" And my wife said, "Well, it's going to be a few days." They estimated 4 days. And the Marine Corps was really good about communicating to my wife and my parents of where I was in my trip, how I was doing, and me coming back. And I thought that was really cool. And it's important to know I was really well taken care of. And my parents and my sister, they were flown out from the Pittsburgh area to California, and they were put up at the hospital, at the Fisher House. And I can get into that later at the Q&A, but that was just something very special. But my wife told my daughter that I'd be home in probably about 4 or 5 days. And my daughter processed all that information in under 10 seconds, smiled really big, and said, "Daddy's going to be home for Christmas." And I thought that was really special, because what I thought of as being a very negative thing, a very negative event in my life, what my wife looked at as a very negative thing, my parents, my friends, it was negative. Yeah, I was alive, but people were upset. My daughter quickly and purely pulled something positive from that situation. And I don't know what's better, being home for Christmas or having that leg, but the whole having a leg thing, like, that was gone. Like, it's a fact. That thing is not there anymore. And my daughter, instead of focusing on that fact, something that she couldn't control, she decided to focus on something positive. And my wife told me that when I was in Germany, and it made my day. It made me smile. I called the nurses in and told them, like, "Hey, I get to go spend Christmas with my family." And that was very special for us, because we hadn't spent a Christmas together yet because of the deployments. One of us was always gone. So my daughter, I'll never forget the Christmas. We did it at the Fisher House down at the hospital. We had to reroute Santa, but he still came, and it was a very special thing. But somewhere along the line, that childlike thinking, childlike way of thinking, I lost that. And I don't know if I just started focusing on negative, but that person that can pull something positive from any situation, because there is something positive in every situation if you really dig down deep and think about it. That person, that's the type of person that I want to be around. And that's the type of person that I want to be. And if my daughter can do it, then I can do it. And back to that picture. That's a cool picture. Perspective. Where I did my recovery, it just had a huge impact on the success of my recovery, because I did all of my rehab down at Balboa Hospital, and there were a lot of other injured Marines and sailors there, and there were a lot of other amputees, and it was more of a team thing. I spent about 2.5 to 3 weeks. I had to go through a couple surgeries and do some healing in the hospital room. But I'll never forget when a physical therapist came up, put me in a wheelchair, and then took me down to the physical therapy room. It was my first time, and I wasn't really going to do much except for go check it out. And she pushed me into the doors, and I saw a bunch of other injured Marines and sailors. And the thing is, their wounds and their scars made my single below-knee amputation look like a paper cut. There was double above-the-knee amputees. There were triple amputees, guys that couldn't walk, guys that couldn't see. And it was, for me, it was like, wow. It made me really think about, one, how lucky I am, and two, I saw them doing it. I saw them in the physical therapy room really crushing it. They were working out. They were laughing. They were joking. They were high-fiving. They were sweating. It was not, I didn't see one victim in that room. It was a room full of warriors, and they were getting back into life. And it made me proud to be among them. It made me proud and eager to get started with them. It was very special. And I love the camaraderie. I don't think I've ever really went into detail. I haven't with my wife or even many civilians about everything that went into my experience in Afghanistan. But the other Marines, other sailors there who went through some of the same stuff, I mean, we were very open with each other, and it was very therapeutic. Like I would sit there during prosthetic appointments or during physical therapy sessions and stay longer just because we liked talking to each other. Because everyone has a story that maybe you're not extremely comfortable with telling your wife, but you can tell someone else that really quick. And I saw that as therapy, and it was helpful for me. It was helpful for them. It was good all around. And I love the jokes. One day I was in the physical therapy room, and I saw a couple guys wearing a shirt, and on the back of the shirt, it said, "We had a blast in Afghanistan," and they're both missing legs. Is it too soon? And they're wearing the shirts. It was kind of funny. One guy, he told me his favorite. He was a single below-knee amputee, just like myself. He told me his favorite restaurant was IHOP. I thought that was pretty funny. Goal setting that has been absolutely huge in my life. And I got to go back to when I was in the hospital bed. Another person that had a huge impact, and I already kind of mentioned him. He was a fellow captain. He's now a major in the Marine Corps, Isaac Moore. He was my boss. He was the guy that initially asked me to come back to the battalion to deploy to Afghanistan. He was the one that I reported to while I was there. After I got hurt, he's just the type of leader that I respect so highly, and I've learned so many things from him. He called my mom, called my wife a few times, made sure that they're doing all right. I talked to him a few times, and we emailed back and forth. But it was about 2 weeks after the injury that I got an email from him. And up until then, I had a lot of support. I had a lot of cards from people that I knew, from friends, from people in Pennsylvania, a lot of cookies, I like cookies. Cookies are good. A lot of prayers, very important stuff. I needed that. But he sent me an email that really changed my mindset. And it basically just said, "Hey, Mac, when are you going to run your first marathon? Because I want to be there." And at first, it's like, that jerk, I don't have a leg anymore. But I knew what he was doing. And he knew how to motivate and inspire me, and that's what I needed. And it was, I mean, just like my daughter, instead of worrying about the past, let's think about the future. And that's true. Instead of me worrying about what it is I can't do anymore, let's focus on something that I can do. And that motivated, inspired me. And he basically challenged me to run a marathon, so I had to one-up that. And I didn't know much about endurance sports, but I knew an Ironman was bigger than a marathon, so I set a goal at running an Ironman triathlon. An Ironman is just a long triathlon. It's an all-day event. You swim 2.4 miles, you bike 112 miles, and then you run a marathon, 26.2 miles, all one after the other. You have 17 hours to do it, and that was it. That was the goal that I set because I couldn't think of anything harder to do at the time, and I wanted to recover, and that was it. That was my recovery. I set that goal, and then I set a short-term goal. And a short-term goal was to be standing in a prosthetic leg when my Marines got back from Afghanistan. And I had about 3 months from when I was injured to do that. And I had, at that point, I had talked to doctors and and asked them like what the timeline looks like. And some people take longer, some people were shorter. Everyone is different. Everyone's wounds are different. I was like, I'm going to set that as a goal. And those goals, that is what helped me get up in the morning and go down to the hospital for physical therapy. Because there was days when I woke up and I was very upset, very emotional. I don't have a leg anymore. I'm different. This kind of sucks, but I'm going for something. I want to be standing, so I have to go, and I have to go put in an hour of physical therapy and go to my other appointments, and I have to recover. This is exactly 2 months after my injury. February 9th, 2012, and this was the first day that I stood up in a prosthetic leg. Now, from the injury, my limb was extremely swollen, and it had come down a good bit when we were doing a lot, but it still really, really hurt. But that pain was so worth it. For me, guys, I struggled being in a wheelchair. I struggled not because my arms were weak or anything, because I was good with that whole thing, but I don't know why. When I was in a wheelchair, everyone who came up and talked to me, they would look down at me, and I felt like they were talking to me like I was a child. And I was a captain in the United States Marine Corps who just came from Afghanistan, leading men in battle, and all of a sudden, I was feeling, it's hard to explain, and I wish I didn't feel that way, because there's some people that are in wheelchairs their entire life, and that's, and I'm sure that there's ways to get past that. But I quickly got up on crutches. One day I crutched in the physical therapy room, and my physical therapist, Fran, she just shook her head. She looked at me and said, "No, you're not allowed to be on crutches yet." But I would try to speed it up. But when I got up it didn't matter how bad that hurt. I was up and I was standing and I was walking, and things couldn't go quick enough. So that turned into about a week and a half later, they finally let me take the prosthetic leg home, because I was only allowed to spend so many minutes in it a day, and then 15 minutes, then twice a day 15 minutes, and then I could spend as much time as I wanted, but I had to use a cane, and it was just a slow process. But a week before my Marines got back, I dropped the cane, I didn't have anything, and I was standing. They flew back to, March? Or March Air Force Base, and then they bussed down to Camp Pendleton, and I met them before they went and met their families. They got off the bus, and I was standing there. And I don't know if it meant a lot to them, but it meant a whole heck of a lot to me. I hopped on the bus with them and took the rest of the trip, and we got off the bus, and we marched together, and they went and all met their families. And it was just an awesome night. It was really cool. So that goal accomplished. That was cool. And now I got this other one, this whole Ironman thing that I wanted to do, and I had to start working towards that. When you got something that big, an Ironman, it's hard to really put that into perspective and focus. So I really had to break it down into different milestones. And walking, that was kind of a milestone. That was a big one. Then I had to learn how to run, had to learn how to bike and swim. Swimming was funny because I was always comfortable in the water, but I was never an actual swimmer, so I didn't do strokes really well. I didn't have good form. And the first few times that I went swimming, I swim without a prosthesis, swim without a leg. I would always go in circles, and I couldn't figure out how to stop doing it. But I don't know, if you adapt and overcome, you figure out how to change the other angle of your foot and just get it figured out. Biking was pretty funny as well. First time I biked, I don't know if you've ever road biked before, but you get shoes where you clip right into your pedals, and your feet are stuck to those pedals. And my first ride ever, I borrowed a bike from someone. I went out and bought shoes and pedals, and I put them on. I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'm going for it. And I got out there, and I'm pedaling along, and I was feeling great. The wind in my face, it felt awesome. I loved it. And I come rolling up to a red light, so I have to stop. So I stop, but I forget that my feet are stuck to the pedals, and I can't put my foot down. So I tip over, going 0 miles per hour. And not only do I tip over, I don't have my leg really secured on. I didn't know what to do. But my foot stayed on that pedal, and my leg came off. And it was one of those red lights where there's like 10 cars backed up at each light. It was emotionally scarring. Every car had to stop and ask me if I was all right. I was like, yes, right now I'm emotionally hurt. Please just keep going. But it was fun. I got back on the bike, kept going. Like I still fall from time to time. Everyone does, I think. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But it's one of those things. If you fall off the horse, you get back on. Or you stop riding horses and get a bike. I met an organization they call the Challenge Athletes Foundation. They support people with disabilities to get back into sports. And they have a specific program called Operation Rebound that supports military and military veterans with disabilities. And I met them early. And they were catalysts and very supportive in my goal. They sent me to a triathlon camp early on, before I really knew. I knew I was running an Ironman, that was a triathlon, but I didn't know exactly what I was doing. So this group sent me to a triathlon camp with able-bodied athletes and disabled athletes, and I just learned a ton. It was really cool. I'm going to show you a quick video of who they are and what they represent. That's great. So the Challenge Athletes Foundation, they were awesome. When I came back from that camp, they signed me up for my first triathlon. So 8 months after my injury, this was early August, I did a sprint triathlon. And it was just a fraction of what an Ironman is, but it was another milestone. It was me doing it. I have a smile on my face in that picture, but I think it was a forced smile because it was really, really hard event. It was tough, I thought, but it was really cool. In the first year, I was able to do 3 triathlons and a marathon. So I was making some serious steps towards that Ironman goal. And one of the triathlons I got to do with Lance Armstrong. It was funny. I told my daughter we had to go meet Lance Armstrong, and she's like, "Oh, he walked on the moon." It's like, nah, that's a different one. That's a different one. But it was cool. This was before he came out on Oprah or whatever, so it was a cool event. He beat me in that triathlon barely by like 2 hours, but it was a cool experience. It was a cool experience. And then the beginning of the next season, I found out that I got selected to be on a team with a company, an organization called Refuel Got Chocolate Milk, and we were going to do a marketing campaign, sell chocolate milk as a recovery drink, and go compete in the Ironman World Championships in Kona, Hawaii. And that was just an absolute blessing. It was really, really neat. And another member of the team was Pittsburgh Steeler wide receiver, retired at this time, Hines Ward. And it was cool for me because I'm from Pittsburgh, a huge Steelers fan. So that was all right, black and gold. So it was really special. That was really cool. And in the middle there, that's Paula Newby Frazier. She's a 8-time Ironman world champion in the 90s. They call her the Queen of Kona because she's just that fabulous. And she was our coach. So I was very lucky to have coaching like that. This is the picture of us on the bike, me on the bike. We did some really cool stuff where we did a sprint triathlon, then a little bit longer, and then a half distance, and we just met up and trained together a good bit, and this was out in Kansas. And then finally, I got to take the family out to Hawaii for a week of vacation. It was vacation for my family, but it was work for me. I had to go run an Ironman. And it was a magical day, magical event. It started with a swim, and I don't know if you've ever seen triathlon, but over 2,000 people starting at the same time. The horn goes off, and you just go 300 meters of absolute hard swimming, and then 2.3 miles of hitting the rhythm. And it was a very, very, very cool, amazing swim. The water was like an aquarium, but the swim went really well. I wanted to swim an hour and 15 minutes, and I swam faster. I swam an hour and 9 minutes. And then I hopped on the bike. And before you run out on the bike, they have this station where they put a whole bunch of sunscreen on you, because all your sunscreen comes off in the water, so they sunscreen you up. And somehow I missed that station. So this was about a year and a half ago, and I still have tan lines like from that silly whatever. But the bike was good. It took me 5 hours, 45 minutes. I went a little bit harder than I should have, so it is what it is. I got excited, but it was an amazing bike ride. And then I went out to run. When I came in from the bike, the last thing that I wanted to do was go run a marathon. But the only thing that I had left was to go run a marathon. So I put my running leg on, because I do these in a different bike leg and a different run leg, and I took off and just put one foot in front of the other, and I kept going. I remember mile 17. They have mile markers and aid stations every mile, basically. But I remember mile 17 for some reason, because I asked myself 2 questions. And the first one was, how did I ever get myself into this? This sucks. Every single part of my body hurt. Like, my limb was on fire. I knew that it was blistered underneath. It wasn't going well. It's a very humid environment in Kona, Hawaii, where it isn't here. So all of my training here just wasn't exactly like what it was going to be like in Hawaii. And then I asked myself the other question of who would ever do more than one of these things? Because I knew people that I have friends that have done like 14 of them. And it's like, who would ever do that? And I kept going. It got harder before it got easier. It got to the point where I actually had to sit down. I took my leg off and tried to dry everything off and put it back on and kept going. But eventually I hit my stride and I started going. And shortly after that, I answered those questions.
Next to finish is retired Marine and challenged athlete Eric McElvaney. He crosses the line in 11:54:19.
Look back on the race, I think when it was hard and I was able to kind of dig down deep, it brings a sense of pride to me. At that point, like I felt no pain. I felt like an Ironman.
Become One team is reunited at the finish line. The long journey is now complete.
So that was awesome, guys. It was 11 hours, 54 minutes was my first one. Thank you. Initially, my goal was to finish an Ironman. As I got closer, my shooting for 11:30, so I didn't really hit my goal, but it was close enough. I didn't care. I was happy with that. And when I crossed that finish line, like I answered those 2 questions. How did I ever get myself into this? Just the feeling of accomplishment coming across that finish line, just the emotions. it's hard to put into words what it felt like. But thinking back 22 months to where I was in a hospital bed, where I couldn't even sit up on my own, where I had all the IVs in me, and I was dependent on other people. And fast forwarding 22 months to where I was crossing the Ironman finish line, it was just felt amazing. It felt amazing. That is why I got myself into it. And then who would ever do more than one of those things? It's because of that feeling of accomplishment, and just it was something special. And before I even got home from Hawaii, I was looking up what race I'm going to do next. I ended up, after that initial year, last year in 2014, I did 2 more Ironmans, and I have 2 more this year. I hit the goal. I hit my goal of running an Ironman, and I set another goal. I'm shooting to be the fastest amputee Ironman, and I'm not there yet, so I have a lot of work ahead of me, and just it's something to have that goal to help me get out of bed in the morning and to go and to do it. And I love it, and I'm passionate about it. My family really supports me, and it's very special. The people in my life, I have a lot of people that come up to me and shake my hand and thank me for my service and my sacrifice, and that is very special. And I think that's really cool. It makes me proud to have served our country and have served as a Marine. It definitely makes me proud, but it also makes me think of the people who have sacrificed in my life, and it jumps out at me, like my parents. And after I was injured, my parents came out, and my mom actually, she quit her job back in Pittsburgh to stay out with us because we didn't have other family out here. And for 3 months, my wife had to go back to work, and I had to figure out how to drop my daughter off at school and to drive down to the hospital. And I was on pain medication that I wasn't allowed to drive with, and I didn't have a leg to hit the accelerator, so it was tough. So my mom put her life on hold to come and be with me, and that's special. And because my mom did that, my dad, he had to work extra hours. He had to work overtime and extra hours to be able to pay the bills. So they both did that. And I think about the doctors and the surgeons and all the medical staff that went through so much schooling. Going to school for 8 years or whatever, that's tough. That's a huge time commitment, but it's so rewarding, so worth it to be able to save someone's life and to be able to create, it gives someone the opportunity to move on after an injury like I had. I'm so grateful that the surgeons and the doctors did go through all that. My prosthetist, the guy that makes my legs, it's funny. And I see God's hand in this, but I didn't know him until after I set that goal of running an Ironman. I met him about a month later when I was finally starting to get ready to put on a prosthesis, and I found out that he runs triathlon and that he competes in Ironmans, and at a very high level. He was getting ready to go to Kona because he had qualified for a spot to go to the World Championships, and he had quickly became a friend, and he knows what it takes to run an Ironman. He's not an amputee, but he fits people who play sports, and he fits sports legs really well, and he worked with me, and it was hard in 22 months to get me in legs in a comfortable way. Sometimes it was a daily visit to him to make small adjustments. He worked on weekends sometimes in the evening. His goal was to get me to that Ironman start line, and then it was my turn to take over and get to that finish line. But he really put in a lot of time. He's a good friend, and there's something special. And then just to continue with that sacrifice, I think about the other military men and women that I served with, and specifically 3. One of my really good friends, one of the guys that I roomed with during infantry officer course, he was killed in action in Marja, Afghanistan in 2010, and that was tough. And he's just a really good leader. He's the type of guy that he'd walk into a store and start naming everybody by name. It's like, oh man, his name was Brandon Barrett. We called him Bull. I'm like, Bull, how do you know all these people? It's like, oh, I like meeting people, and I like using their first name. And he was just an amazing, caring leader, and I am very grateful for him and his sacrifice. Another Marine that I worked with, Sergeant Stacy, an amazing Marine. He was killed in action a month after I was, basically in the same area by an IED, but the IED that he triggered was bigger than the one that I did. Sometimes I question why, but it happened, and I'm very grateful for his sacrifice. And then lastly, another Marine, CJ Boyd, who He had 1-year-old twin boys, and he was killed in action, and that's tough. But the Marines rallied around his wife and helped her and support them in growing up, and that's just very, very special stuff, and that definitely means a lot. I'm just about to finish here, but I want to share with you one thing. Usually when I open up for questions, sometimes it's tricky. When you open up for Q&A, you also open up yourself an opportunity to sometimes look like an idiot, because you got to answer the question the best you can. And I've done this. I speak at all different levels. Sometimes I speak to elementary kids about what it's like not having a leg, or middle school, high school. I've spoken at corporate type events and whatnot, but for some reason, at the high school level, I always get the same question, and it is, if you could go back to the day that you're injured, would you change anything? And the first time I was asked that, I was just like quickly, I guess obvious. It's like, yeah, I probably wouldn't step right there. That was kind of dumb. And then I went home. I was like, man, I didn't answer that question really well. Sometimes with Q&A, that you come up with a good answer on your ride home or a week later, and I did. And then I was glad that I was asked that question again, and I answered it differently. And it's, I can't control the past. Those first few days after I was injured, I realized that I was really focusing on what I did wrong. Like, why did I step here instead of here? And what was I doing? How did I get away from the cleared path? Like, what happened? And if I would have continued to think like that, that would have killed me. But instead of focusing on the bad, let's focus on the future. But later on, I realized that wasn't really answering the question either. And I was asked that question again, and I think finally, I think I have the right answer. They're asking me if, me knowing what I know now, going back, what would I change things? And in the past 3.5 years, I have gone on a path that I did not plan. I definitely did not plan. I did not expect, and I have grown as a man. And my priorities have shifted and changed a lot in these 3.5 years. And I look at myself and how much I've grown, and I guess what I know now and what I value now, and looking back at where I was going. And I'm not saying this is bad, but my plan was maybe one more deployment in the Marine Corps. Then I was going to get out, and I was going to try to get a good executive job in a corporation with the goal to make a lot of money. But that changed. Now I realized when I thought that there was a chance that I was dying, I thought about two things. I thought about going to heaven, and I thought about my family. So I realized if those are the two things that I think of when I think I'm dying, those are the two most important things to me. So those are my priorities, my faith and my family. And now I'm a seminary student. I'm studying Christian theology at Bethel Seminary. I just started a year ago, and I volunteer at our church a lot, and that's just something that I wouldn't have done. And now I'm so happy and so comfortable with it. And my family, every decision I make now, it's really based on It's based on those two things. So I'm really, really glad that I had the opportunity to grow from this experience, and it really has been an opportunity. And if I go back knowing what I know now, I wouldn't want to go through the pain, but I wouldn't change things. I definitely wouldn't change things. So, guys, thank you very much for paying attention and being such a good audience.